For me, it was a really big trust fall because I did all the things of control. I gave myself rules, I tracked my food, I wrote down how many calories I was eating. I gave myself those tight rules and boundaries of right and wrong, but I kept losing that sense of control. What's important to know is this isn't about giving up on yourself. It's about opening up to a new way of doing things. Hey, welcome back. I know it's easy to think, if I could just be disciplined, if I could just do really good, then I would get there and I would be healthy. But unfortunately, that sense of discipline and control never gets us there. There's a paradox with control, that sometimes the harder that we control and try, the more we lose control. And so I want to unpack that today, why these control strategies don't work. Sometimes control can give us this false sense of power. It might look like if I write down my food, if I control what foods are coming in the house and not coming in the house, that's when I'll be fully in my power. Or if I just push myself to wait until noon or 1 o'clock till I eat, or if I don't eat after 7 p.m., then I'll be in control. But all of these boundaries are actually band-aids that create a prison for us. We're never able to feel this sense of freedom. And so a lot of people are trying to be healthy through this false sense of control. I want to break down why control is actually the thing that keeps people stuck, and how letting go of control is actually the path to what you really desire, which is being able to be healthy if you want from a place of freedom and trust. Building trust comes from letting go of our need to control. And I want to share how to do that. The first thing to know is that control is a coping mechanism. It helps give us this false sense of being powerful and in control and having strength and discipline, because it can work for a short amount of time, but I've never seen control really give somebody freedom and have a really beautiful life transformation with their body or with their food. And it's because it gives us that small false sense of power, that I am knowing what I'm eating, when I'm eating, I have rules, I have boundaries, but it never actually gets to the root of why don't we trust ourselves? When you build trust that you'll always make a choice that's within your best interest, whether it's food or something else, you don't need rules because you just trust that you'll be able to tune in and say, is this choice right for me? Whenever you create rules, boundaries, accountability, tracking, that means that you haven't been able to trust your own judgment just yet. That's what we're working on here together, is building self-trust so that it's not just to not use rules, it's that the rules become irrelevant. You don't need them. I don't need rules with food when I can tune in and say, well, I know that if that's not in my best interest, I'm just not going to choose it. But it takes some practice to get there. So first, it's really realizing that control is just a coping mechanism to help us feel strong and powerful. But the truth is, what really drives our lack of self-trust is things that are beneath the surface. Using these different methods of control, like giving ourselves rules and boundaries, it makes us feel strong temporarily, but it's actually a distraction from doing the deeper work that really builds long-lasting self-trust. So I know a lot of people don't like to hear that. Michael Brown in the Presence Process, he says that he calls it fiddling with effects. We're just fiddling with side effects by doing extreme diet programs, extreme exercise plans. What we're doing is we're just kind of staying busy and staying on the surface. When we're ready to do the deeper work of really building self-trust, we won't go on the surface and try to manipulate what we're eating and forcing ourselves and controlling and setting rules and boundaries. Instead of saying, you're not allowed to eat after 7, I might instead check in and say, does my body genuinely need food after 7? If it needs food after 7 p.m., then my body will be healthy if I give it the food that it's actually needing. I can trust that. But it's about building that trust instead of bypassing it by needing a rule. One of the main reasons that control doesn't typically work is because the focus is on eating less. And when you focus on eating less, your body doesn't know if you are trying to get healthier or if you're going into famine. So the body will shift and usually cause a loss of control and a rebound. So controlling food and trying to eat less almost always causes a rebound. This is not an inherent human flaw. This is actually just your biology. When your body thinks that you're going into famine, it rebounds by getting you to overeat. this will always create that lack of self-trust. If your focus is on eating less, you're almost always going to rebound the other way. When you let go of control and needing to fit within calories and tight boundaries, instead you're just tuning in and you're giving your body exactly what it needs, and it doesn't go into this biological rebound. The other problem with control is that it creates loops, looping patterns. And this is because the way that you use control is through different rules and boundaries. So I will eat this, I won't eat this. I will eat it this time, I won't eat it at that time. I'll track this food and I'll stay within these numbers. With control, everything is about rigid rules and boundaries. And what happens is as soon as you step out of that rule or that boundary, it usually sounds like, oh, well, you already messed up. You might as well just really mess up and start over tomorrow. And the truth is, when we expect that perfection, we start to expect a moment when we're going to mess up, and we almost just keep fueling that pattern. I see this a lot with people who track their food. They'll do really well and then write down their food until maybe 3 o'clock. And then after 3 o'clock, either they won't feel like tracking their food, or they'll go out to eat, or they'll kind of have a mindless moment of where they don't know how many calories is in something. And that's when there's the downward spiral. It's like, oh, well, I'm already not tracking. I might as well just start fresh tomorrow. And that like fuels the pattern. So you end up going in this loop of, I do really well and then I lose it. But because you do well during that moment of control, you think that the control is effective because it works for that short temporary period of time. But if it does not last, if it doesn't lead you to freedom, to this feeling of like, I trust myself, I'm in tune with my body, being healthy, it feels natural, it feels effortless, it feels like I'm just in harmony with myself and my body. If it doesn't feel like that, control doesn't work. You're just creating walls of rules and regulations and truly a prison. And it doesn't have to be that way, but I want to let you know, you have to let go in order to grow. It's like taking this clenched fist and softening and releasing to an open palm. And don't worry, I'm going to show you what that looks like, what that means to let go. I really wish that I had that. For me, it was a really big trust fall because I did all the things of control. I gave myself rules. I tracked my food. I wrote down how many calories I was eating. I gave myself those tight rules and boundaries of right and wrong. But I kept losing that sense of control. And control is interesting because it's like having water in your hand, that the harder you squeeze, the more the water comes out. And so the harder I tried, the least amount of control I had, which is a tough place to be in because it's like, well, what do I do now? I don't want to give up on myself. So what's important to know is this isn't about giving up on yourself. It's about opening up to a new way of doing things. And I didn't have someone to show me the way. So I hope that this is helpful for you because I really want to show you what took me a long time to figure out. It was kind of like being on the monkey bars where I was holding on to one side of control, knowing that that wasn't going to get me to where I wanted to go. But I was scared because it was giving me a false sense of power or a false sense of this is the only way that I can take care of my body. But I knew that on the other side was the possibility of something different outside of control. But I had to let go of one side to really make it to the other side. And that's a scary place to be because I didn't know what the other side would look like. I didn't know how to get there. But what I did know is that this side of control was never going to lead me to freedom. So that idea of perfection and maintaining control actually fuels the loop in the pattern because you expect yourself to be perfect, and as soon as you don't, it's like, oh, well, I already messed up. And then you start expecting yourself to go through that loop and you start predicting it and feeding it. To get out of that loop, it's really letting go of that all or nothing mindset and letting yourself soften around the need to control. The number one reason why using control fails is because it's not the main thing that influences our eating habits. We think that our willpower or our discipline will keep us strong and on track. But what you don't see is what's beneath the surface. There are things that influence our food choices so much more than just having discipline and knowing how to eat healthy. One of the core things that I talk about a lot, if you've been listening to this series or following my work, is the role of stress in our nervous system. Your nervous system is designed to protect you. So if you have a lot of stress, you crave sugar, and because that sugar in food protects our bodies because it gives us energy. So that is stronger than your discipline. Your nervous system is stronger than your discipline. Your emotions. Emotions are a major propellant of the food choices that we make. If we need food to cope with our emotions, that will be stronger than our discipline. The other one is things like the beliefs and the stories that we tell ourselves. If we grew up believing that we weren't good enough, or that we couldn't do it, or that we're not worthy of caring for ourselves, we'll sabotage our goals every time to stay in alignment with that belief that we have about ourselves. And that is stronger than having discipline or willpower. So that's where I said using control and discipline is just distracting you. It's a false sense of security. It's a coping mechanism to feel powerful, but it's actually distracting you from doing the deeper work, which is looking at your nervous system, your emotions, the beliefs about yourself, those deeper things that influence your ability to trust yourself. A lot of people ask, can I still practice some form of control while I'm also building trust and listening to my body? And you can try it, you can. But what I found is that those things don't really go together. One is, I'm doing this because I don't trust you. And the other one is, I'm trusting you, I'm listening to you. And so they're opposing things of each other. And what I have found is that when you need those techniques to control, it just means I don't trust you yet. Some people like to use them both together, like I'll track my food and I'll listen to my body. But when you're really tuning in and listening to your body, the need to track goes away. You don't need to count calories. You don't need to write down what you're eating for accountability, because you're tuned in to what is the right choice for me. Can I feel my true hunger? Can I really feel what my body is needing? And then I don't really need those forms of control. So you can, but know that if you're using those forms of control, what it means is I just don't trust you yet. When you get to the place of trust, you won't need those. They just become irrelevant. You're just tuned in and you know how to trust yourself. So now is the time to really practice letting go of control. What I'd love for you to do is to just really think about what are the ways that I box myself in and try to use mental control because I'm afraid of letting go of control. That might mean that I lose control. What's really wild is that a lot of my students will say, I was so afraid to let go of rules and control. But what I found was the opposite that happened. By letting go of control, that's where I found my sense of, I don't even want to say control because control is not the right word, but that's where I felt in tune with my body, and that's where I started to trust myself. I've interviewed a lot of my students here on this podcast that you can listen to their stories where they had so many fears about letting go of control, and they found that that path that they were the most afraid of was the path that gave them freedom. One of the reasons why we never let go of control is because we judge our own experience. That if I let go of my need for control, then if I eat this food or if I eat at this time, that's bad. And our mind starts labeling all these things that we're not supposed to do as bad. But then we never learn from them. We never learn, am I actually hungry? Am I craving something? Am I feeling something? What's really happening inside of this moment? And the only way that we can build trust with ourselves is to understand what we're experiencing. Understanding comes from curiosity. Think of it as like, I wonder why I do that. I wonder what I'm feeling. Instead of labeling and judging it. Judgment creates the need for control. This experience is not okay, so I need to give myself a boundary. I need to create rules and structure. When we let go of right and wrong or good or bad, we open up a whole new possibility of learning about ourselves. And you might say, well, if I just let go of an experience as not being bad, then I'll start just binge eating and I'll think it's okay and I'll give myself permission. Most people find that when they let themselves have an experience, that's when they learn from it. They understand the deeper roots of what they're really needing, and that is what really builds self-trust. So this really requires a letting go a need to have control and expecting an outcome, and really just asking, what do I have to learn? And softening around that. One really edgy question that I like to ask is, if I need to control my food, where else does my need to control show up in life? Where can I soften and open up a little bit more to, instead of needing to have perfection or control, where can I learn about myself from life, from my experience? And that's when we start to really learn a lot of lessons. So just a little bit of an edgy question. If I have this need for control, where else in life does that show up for me? And so this letting go of control not only is beautiful in our relationship with our food, but also creating more trust, not just in ourselves, but our trust with life, of maybe not needing to know, like falling into the mystery of, I wonder what I have to learn, instead of trying to predict what's going to happen next and controlling the outcome. I wonder if I could fall into the mystery and see what I have to learn about myself. And that's where the magic happens. This is really all about building self-trust with yourself and with your body. If it resonated with you, I would love to hear how here. You can always connect with me on Instagram, gina.warfel. And in the next session, I'm going to talk about what do you do in one of the most challenging moments when you lose control, which is under stress. How do you regain that sense of trust under one of the times where we lose that sense of control the most? Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.